Welcome to the Sports Betting Podcast from pregame.com for Super Bowl week 2010. I'm your host, RJ Bell. I'm joined by Marco D'Angelo, 30 years in the business, Vegas runner, genuine professional bettor here in Vegas, star of the CNBC special on illegal gambling, and very hyped up.
Yeah, Super Bowl, I'm feeling it, baby. Days away and I'm wired for it.
This is segment 3 of 6 of our extravaganza, and we're going to be talking the over and under in the Super Bowl. Now, tell us about the total in this game, or the total in the game.
Yeah, it's going up. It opened at 55 and a halves, and 56s. No one was surprised that the first move was to the over when you got these two teams, and especially the way the Saints came in off of the championship weekend and the week before in the playoffs, and even the Colts put up some points against the Jets. So I was surprised, but I'm surprised it's still hovering there. It moved to 57, 56 and a half. And it's still there. But, I mean, the public hasn't spoken yet. And I think with more bettors going to support the over, I'm interested to see if they're going to jack it up even more.
So you see, in general, the cliche or the stereotypical response is the public speaks the most on Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
We should see the line go up. It surprised me it hasn't gone up. You know, it really has dipped down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it was up to 57 a couple of
Exactly.
places. Now it's down a half point. And with the Freeney injury...
You would think with a defensive player going out, especially since the Saints offense runs to that side of the field most, like they're saying, supposedly, that it would go up more instead of down.
So on the total side, Mark, I'm going to ask you what you think the key point is as a handicapper, but interesting conversation, because one of the things that's been jumping off in the forums a lot, jumping off, that's a little street lingo.
Yeah, you're on it.
I watched
Oh,
it.
you listen
Well, I watched
what street was that from?
I watched
Do they have a street in Shady
Some
Side?
hip-hop CD were you listening to on the way over?
I watched a rerun of NYPD.
The Wire?
last night.
I was just watching The Wire.
Anyway, is the whole conversation of trap games or not trap games, and really, what is a trap game other than saying the line is placed a certain way because Vegas knows the public will find it appealing even though it's the wrong side?
And what do you believe on that? Because when you
It's a whole
talk to odds
conversation.
makers, odds makers say there's no such thing. They never have gone into a game thinking we're going to set this one as a trap. They're not that good, they say, to be able
I
to
gotta
do
be
something
honest with
like
you. I
that.
tend to agree with you. And I did. I mean, Marco, trap games are like, really, he may be one of the true authorities.
And that's what we talked
in the
about in
country.
This Week in Vegas, and he's great at it, and that's the thing.
So that's the thing, is I come on the side that if I see value, I want to take value. Marco comes on the other side, and I tell you, his results speak for themselves.
Exactly.
Something that speaks against a trap is the fact that the odds makers in Vegas put this total out at 52, and immediately it opened everywhere at 56.
They just didn't even give it any respect.
So it's interesting, as much as that some people say, well, we're going to respect the odds maker and not think they're giving us too much value, excuse me, is the fact that the books themselves don't respect the odds makers that much.
Right.
When the number comes out at 52, and at least that's what it's sent out as by the Vegas guys, and then offshore opens at 56.
And without it getting steamed under, it's obvious the wise guys didn't think it should have been 52 either.
The books thought 56, the wise guys thought 56 or more, Vegas thought 52.
Yeah.
Well, one thing is the Super Bowl was the biggest bet game of any sporting event at all. You're going to have casual bettors that are going to be making bets that don't make a bet on any other game all year. It is human nature that the public bets overs because they feel in their mind they're never out
But
of
the
the
odds
game.
makers are going to account for that. They're not putting out a true line, they're putting out a fair line. They want to split the action. They thought 52 would split the action.
Well, I'll tell you this much. From a handicapper standpoint, they've got the same total on this game that you had on the Saints and Cardinals. There's two differences. The Colts offense is not as explosive as Arizona's. They're more methodical. They take they drive down the field. And two, the Colts defense is way better than the Cardinals. And you've got the same number in this game as you did in that game. That's a mistake in my opinion.
So you think the value, so you like the 52?
I think the total really, the true line is 52, but they're putting it where they know the public's going to go. And don't be surprised come Sunday. After the public puts their money through on the over, you're going to see it get steamed under on Sunday.
Well, first off, remember now, and this is a once-a-year thing, and we got to remind ourselves, the percentage of action that is sharp action on the Super Bowl is always the smallest percentage of the year. So even if the game does get bet, even if the game does get bet under hard, it's not going to get steamed down. It's not going down to 55. It might take a half a point in a couple spots because there's so much public action and it's so minuscule, the sharp action relative to the public action. And here's what's interesting. I always say, you gotta understand that the winners and losers are not on a piece of paper. They're not W's and L's. They're money. And I can tell you, I had a big bet on the Saints, and I talked about this last week. Following you guys, is we win a lot, but we lose some too. No doubt about it. And the fact of the matter is when I lost that game, or at least I lost half my bet, I bought it down from 3.5 to 3 on some of it. I felt it. And I have a disdain right now for the Saints off of that. I'll give you another example. I came out with a stat for the Arizona game and said that since 1988, I think, 20 years,
20 plus
is 59% of games that were in the NFL 50 or above on the total went under. 59%. Well, the Arizona game went over, all right? So then I put out the same stat, and actually it was still 59%. It was like 58.8 now, but it rounds out to 59. And then the Minnesota game went over.
But that, real quick, that goes back to last year's Big 12. Remember, no matter how high they were setting the totals, and the wise guys were steaming the under, because anytime a total goes up for college above 65, they're going to go under, and they were putting them up at 70, and these teams were still scoring 80 points.
Here's the key point to what you're saying with the total. When we were sitting there watching the Minnesota-New Orleans game, how many times did you look at me and I look at you? We just needed one field goal.
Everything turned into 7.
The Colts have a propensity of making field goals instead of touchdowns more often than not. They stall in the red zone.
The Colts don't.
The Colts do.
All right, so here's my point, though, is I'm telling you that as much as I agree with you, I think this number is absurdly high. The fact that I've lost 2 in a row on the unders against this New Orleans teams makes it hard for me to want to pull the trigger, which is such a good lesson for you guys out there, is a guy like me that's been betting 25 years since I was 14 years old. I still don't want to lose the third time on this under, and that shows you everyone that bet the over is having the opposite reaction.
Yeah.
They've been cashing.
Free money, baby.
So I think that there really is an inflated number here. I think it might go up even more, and I think the value really is on the under.
And that still don't mean it won't go over.
Well, yeah, at best it's going to be 55.
Right.
All right, so what else jumps out at you about the total here? We got 2 minutes.
Surprisingly enough, with the the Colts, what surprises me is that even though both these teams, we know they score number 1 and number 7 in scoring, the Colts' defense is not that great, but they use that bend and don't break. They're 8th in the NFL in points allowed. So they don't let up a lot of points, even though their rankings might be terrible against the pass, against the run, in the bottom half of the NFL. They don't turn into points. So I think you need to look at that, and if they turn a couple of them Saints drives into field goals instead of touchdowns, I think it could influence this total a lot.
And don't forget,
30 seconds.
The beginnings of Super Bowls tend to be played very tight and very close to the vest.
We just looked at that number, and it blew me away.
Yeah.
The total's 57 on the game or so. The total in the first quarter is only 10.5.
Yeah.
So they're saying the total in the last 3 quarters is 47
points. Yeah.
I mean, so that tight. If anything, if the first even 8 minutes is a little bit slow, I don't think they have enough pace to even get over 57. Even if they score, I mean, that Saints game they scored almost against Vikings. They scored almost every time, and it just barely
got there. You're right, but in the Super Bowl, it has that tendency in the last 5 minutes of the game for 2-3 scores to happen.
All right, good conversation. Next up, we're going to be talking our first spot on Super Bowl props. We're actually going to do 2 different ones. And remember, you can get all of our videos at pregame.tv, or if you want to download and listen, just go to iTunes, search for pregame.com.